This channel has been set up to make sure that anyone could observe our democratic meetings. Therefore, members, please remember anyone with internet connection can watch this meeting at any time. There is a delay between the meeting and the broadcast on the YouTube channel of approximately 30 seconds. There are subtitles on the YouTube broadcast. These are generated automatically by YouTube. The Council is not responsible for the subtitles nor their accuracy. Webcasting officer, please can you confirm that the broadcast is now live?
Yes, the broadcast is now live.
Lovely, thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Local Plan Subcommittee on Thursday, the 4th of February 2021. Before we commence with the proceedings, I can confirm that the Council's adopted some basic etiquette rules for its remote meetings, and these are as follows. Please only speak when the Chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the Chairman know that you wish to speak through the chat function. The Chairman will introduce speakers in the order at which the request to speak has been made, unless there is a point of order at which we will give way. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute their microphones when they're not speaking and to consider turning off their video if there is interference on their connection to this meeting. Please bear in mind that there may be a lag between the speakers and other attendees hearing you. Any presentations for this meeting have been made available in advance and will be shared on the screen this evening. When referring to a report, please quote the page and relevant paragraph number. There is no private business for tonight's agenda. However, please can I remind members it is your responsibility to make sure that your venue and connection is private. If you lose connection to the meeting at any point, please rejoin and I'd readmit you to the meeting. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to the access to information regimes of FOI, EIR. It is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation and the Council's Code of Conduct. To assist the managing of the chat function, the agenda items will be placed to act as markers. The members of the Local Plan Subcommittee are Mrs. Gabrielle Spray, the Chairman, Councillor David Bebb, Vice Chairman. The members of the committee are Kevin Bowers, Graham Butland, Tom Cunningham, Tony Everard, Patrick Horner, David Hume, Tom Walsh. Sorry, I do apologise, it's not Tom Walsh, it's Jenny Sandham and Justin Wrench. There are also officers in attendance, and these include Emma Goodens and Alan Masser, who will be making presentations tonight. Alison Webb is the governance officer taking the minutes for this evening, and I'm the meeting facilitator, Emma Wisby. Tonight we have no apologies, Chairman, and all members are present. I can confirm the meeting is quorum and may proceed, so I hand over to you, Chairman, Mrs. Spray. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Local Plan Subcommittee. Good evening and welcome to members of the committee and to anyone watching via the Council's YouTube channel. And can I also just welcome Councillor Mrs. Sandham. It's the first one of these she's attended because I think you were unable to make the December one. So very nice to see you here this evening, Councillor Sandham. For those watching via the YouTube channel, my name is Councillor Gabrielle Spray and I will be chairing this meeting. I'm being assisted by a governance officer and a meeting facilitator who will help me identify when people want to speak and manage the notifications through the chat function. And can I please ask any of you, if you have any problems at all, if you can flag those up through the chat function, and if you want to speak, please do the same. If at any point during this meeting I need agreement from everybody, I will take silence as assent. And as everybody's here, I will move on. Item 1, apologies for absence. As Emma said, we have none. It's very nice to have everybody here. So I'll move on to item 2, declarations of interest. If members have any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests that they wish to declare, please would you indicate via the chat.
Apologies, Chairman, your microphone has switched off. Could I ask you to start the declaration of items
Sorry.
item again, please? Thank you.
I think I just flicked my finger over it. Sorry. Yes, item 2, declarations of interest. If members could indicate via the chat function whether they have any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests that they wish to declare this evening. And I have Councillor Abbott and then Councillor Butland. Councillor Abbott, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Non-pecuniary interests in that I have at various times participated on consultations on the local plan, and also any matters that relate to Essex County Council, of which I am a member.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will declare, although it is, I don't think, relevant any longer, that I still am a director at the moment of North Essex Garden Communities, which is in the process of being wound up, but I don't think officially has been wound up, although that is likely to happen in the next couple of weeks. But I will declare that as I am still a director, although, as I say, I don't think it's relevant to tonight's thing because the garden communities are no longer relevant to the local plan.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. In that case, I will follow suit and declare an NPI, as I did attend board meetings of North Essex Garden Communities as a non-voting member, but just for clarity, I will declare an NPI. Right, I don't see any more declarations of interest. So I'll move on to item 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of December 2020. If anybody has any issues that they wish to raise, if they could indicate, otherwise I will take silence as assent. I don't see anybody indicating, so I will in that case assume that everybody is happy that the minutes are correct. Thank you. Item 4, public question time. We have no registered speakers for this evening, so I can move swiftly on to item 5, which is section 1, local plan, the inspector's final report and process for adoption. Members, this report is set out on pages 5 to 226 of the agenda, which I think must have created a thud on your doormat when it came through. But I'm going to invite Emma Goodings, Head of Planning and Economic Growth, to set out the report. Emma, good evening, over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Spray, and good evening, members, and welcome to our first local plan subcommittee of the new year. So I reported verbally at our previous meeting in December that the council had received a copy of the final report from the inspector on the shared strategic section 1 local plan. That report has been published on the examination pages of the website since the 10th of December last year and is attached as Appendix 1 to your report. The report sets out the inspector's reasoning on a number of key areas on the Section 1 plan and concludes that the plan is sound, subject to the adoption of a number of main modifications, which are set out as part of Appendix 2 to this report. These main modifications, are largely unchanged from those that the inspector consulted on earlier on last year, but with a very few small changes, mainly to avoid repetition and to clarify some language. He has also needed to make a few modifications due to the changes, the government changes to use classes. So to clarify that the B use classes, which were referred to in the plan, now relevant to the updated use class standards that we have. Appendix 3 then to this report includes a final version of the Section 1 local plan, including all those main modifications that the inspector has made, but also includes minor modifications to the explanatory text. These have been agreed by the officers at the 3 authorities, and they are to reflect the changes that the inspector has made to the policies and the key elements of the plan, but also to correct typos and to clarify language. So within that final report from the inspector, he notes that it is a decision for each local authority as to whether they adopt the Section 1 plan separately from their Section 2 plan. And whilst, of course, he confirms that it is possible for the local authorities to adopt the plan as it has been found sound. I can confirm that since the writing of this report, both Tendring and Colchester have taken full council decisions to adopt the Section 1 local plan. So from a Braintree perspective, officers sought legal advice on whether the authority should adopt the Section 1 plan in advance of the Section 2 plan being considered. And the advice was clear that if the authority delayed the adoption of the Section 1 plan to wait until the Section 2 had been approved without good reason, then this could bring the potential threat of legal challenge to the authority. And it could also bring about the threat of intervention by the government. So intervention by the government is the Secretary of State can direct the local authority to approve a plan, and I think this has been done recently a couple of times now, so it's no longer a sort of empty threat. And also we have had a letter, local authority chief execs and leaders had a letter from Christopher Pincher MP, who's the housing minister, reminding all local authorities to essentially get on with their work on their local plans at the moment. So I think it's clear that the government would be pushing for us to make all progress as possible with the local plan. So in practical terms, if members agree to the adoption of the Section 1 plan, then the council will be required to produce an adoption statement. It will publish this on its website, as well as sending it out to all those who have asked to be informed of the local plan progress and all those who participated within the Section 1 examination. On its adoption, the policies within the Section 1 local plan would have full weight in decision making, including those relating to housing and employment targets. These policies will replace some, but not all, of the policies within the 2011 core strategy. The remaining policies within that core strategy and in the Local Plan Review 2005 will be replaced by the policies within the Section 2 local plan. Finally, just to note on the Section 2 examination that we have been given provisional dates by the Planning Inspectorate for the Section 2 hearings taking place in early July. These are provisional dates at this stage, and the Inspectorate will clarify and confirm those exact dates nearer the time. So the recommendations for this report are on page 13 of your report, and there to note the contents of the inspector's final report, and also to make a recommendation to full council that the Section 1 local plan is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. It's nice and clear. I have a number of members wishing to speak. Councillor Coleridge got in first, I think. Councillor Coleridge, you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've received information this week about the updated housing delivery test figures and our 5-year land supply. In view of this, could the Chairman or Officer please clarify how the adoption of Section 1 might impact on our 5-year supply and exactly where we stand over the coming months? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coleridge. Yes, the figures come out, I think, well, I'll pass over to Emma to answer. They were actually due out in November of last year and were delayed, so came out just a few days ago. Emma, can I ask you to take this one, please?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So members will have received a briefing note in general on the 5-year supply position at present, but obviously the local plan does have an impact on there if it was to be adopted. So it's slightly complicated, but for the last few years, the council has been using the standard methodology as the target for calculating housing need. Now that figure has changed during that time because of changes to the inputs into the standard methodology formula, and also changes to the methodology that have been brought in during that time. But when we adopt the local plan, then we use the target that has been agreed through the local plan process to essentially set and keep the local plan target. And so within the local plan, that is an annual average target of 760 new dwellings per year. However, at this stage of the plan process, the council would need not only to meet that annual requirement of 716 new homes per year, plus the 5% buffer flexibility, but it would also need to meet the deficit of houses, which it hasn't built at that target level since 2013. So this deficit currently stands at just under 1,700 homes. So the detailed housing trajectory and the discussion about how exactly we meet that housing target is set out in detail within the Section 2 plan and will be agreed at the Section 2 stage. But at this stage, with the adoption of the Section 1 plan, the legal advice is that we need to follow that approach, so meeting the deficit within the first 5 years of the plan. So at the point of adoption, we will go from a housing figure that we have at present, which is above 4 years, to a 5-year supply position, which will be below 4 years. However, that is there it is, constantly changing at the moment. So we are approaching the end of the year for housing delivery. So housing delivery targets roll forward each year. They end as of March the 31st. So there will be another roll forward of the 5-year supply from that date, which will probably be published. We're hoping to publish that in early May, which will again produce a slightly different figure because the supply position will have changed. I hope that made sense, but please do ask me any other questions if not.
Thank you. It's never straightforward, is it?
Thank you. Thanks, Emma. I think when you start off by saying it's slightly complicated, yeah, it is. It's quite a complex thing for everybody to get their heads around. But I think the basics at the moment, as per the briefing that came out earlier this week, is that we have a 4.59 year supply. That's what we are going with at the moment. All right, thank you. Next, I have Councillor Abbott to ask.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, well, the government certainly doesn't make it easy, and these housing numbers need to be simplified. And you know, they want councils to deliver higher rates of housing, then they need to make it very clear as to how they do that. And we're constantly chopping and changing on these figures and raising uncertainties. Question before I say a little bit more to officers. Given that we've now got a date for Section 2 examination starting in July, have they got any sort of draft trajectory as to where that'll take us in terms of when we might have Section 2 and therefore the entire plan adopted? I agree very much with the recommendations that we need to now get on and adopt. When it says, and this is my second question, where it says we're recommending to full council, is that a recommendation to the February council or one of the March councils? Could that be clarified, please? I'm hoping that this is now going to draw a line under what has been a very controversial and difficult period. And I would say I've read every line of what the inspector wrote in his responses. And I don't detect from the administration councillors, and I'm not criticising officers here because I think that they've done a great job on as far as what they've been instructed to do. I don't detect from the administration any sort of real admission that this has been a catastrophe in planning terms. That this has not only resulted in years of delay in achieving a local plan, but that many local villages, not least the ones myself and Councillor Wright represent, have been inundated with speculative greenfield developments because in part we didn't have a local plan. And it would be interesting to hear a bit more, because I think the inspector has been rather unfairly criticised. As was said in the report we've got tonight, he's a very experienced inspector, and he went through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And his conclusions were as they were, that we could not proceed with the 3 proposed garden communities and only one survived, and nothing in Braintree district survived. That said, I 100% would agree that we need to move on. We need to get Section 2 done as soon as we possibly can. And I, for one, will be working along those lines on the basis, though, that we do have meaningful consultation and that we try and take communities with us this time, which I don't think happened with Section 1. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I'll ask Emma in a moment just to respond to your first question, which was when we could expect perhaps to have a fully adopted local plan. Your second question around full council date, it's the 22nd of February, so not far off at all. And my only comment on your third point is that, yes, I agree. I think we would all like to draw a line under this and get Section 1 found sound, move on to Section 2. I think you know pretty well, because I've expressed it before in meetings, my view on the garden communities, which I supported them, and I still do support the concept of garden communities. I still believe, as far as this administration was concerned, we fully believed it was the right way to go to achieving our housing targets along with the infrastructure. So there is no apology quite frankly, from me on that. I have, you know, it's not the first time I've said that, but I accept absolutely the inspector's decision and report, and he was very clear on that. And I think, yes, let's, you know, let's get this done and move on. Emma, perhaps you could just give a view on Councillor Abbott's first question, which was, when do you think we can expect to have both sections 1 and 2 fully found sound? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So just to confirm again, those dates in early July are very much provisional at this stage, but that's what we are working to. So based on those dates, we know there'd probably be a couple of weeks of hearings. Then you need to allow time for the inspector to consider, or the inspectors to consider the results of that. We know that there will be made modifications to the Section 2 plan because there needs to be, because of the Section 1 plan. So we know that we need to build in at least a 6-week consultation period that the inspector will hold on those modifications. But I am hopeful that if we can proceed swiftly and on that basis, that we would be able to adopt before the end of the calendar year is out. That would definitely be what I am working towards, that we can adopt before the end of the year. But obviously some of that is within our control, but a lot of it is within the control of the planning inspector and how quickly he is able to, they are able to look at things, but also whether they think any further consultation would be needed on any points that have been raised during the hearing session. But yeah, I'm optimistic that we might be able to get full adoption before the end of the calendar year.
Thank you, Emma. Great. Well, that would that's very good to hear, and fingers crossed that we can achieve that. I had a message on the chat function that Councillor Bowers had dropped out, but I think you're back with us. Yes, I know your internet connection is not great this evening. Right, next I have Councillor Bebb, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. July, I think we're all a bit dismayed about how long that is. It's months away. There were 2 inspectors appointed, and when I reported about the July date to the parish council here on Monday, there was great dismay at the long delay till that time, months going by with nothing happening. So they asked me to convey tonight the strong feeling from the parish council that this is not really good enough. I know it's out of our control in some respect, but they did ask, is there any way in which we can approach the inspectorate to bring it forward? If there are 2 inspectors, surely there would be 1 available for us. I think that Tendring and Colchester may be ahead, but is there anything we can do to expedite this at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bebb. Yes, Tendring Council approved their Section 1, I think about 10 days ago, and Colchester was either Monday or Tuesday of this week. I think we all share the disappointment, yours and your parish councils, at the delay to this. We had hoped for sort of late February, March examination. Emma, do you have any further comments on this? I know it's largely out of our hands.
Yeah, thank you. So I have spoken to the programme officer in terms of the dates, and she's reassured me that there's no ulterior motive or anything like that. It is purely a matter of being able to be offered a date in which the inspectors are available and that they have space within their current programmes and workloads. And I understand in particular that they have existing commitments through May and June, which means the earliest that they're able to come to the Braintree examination is July. I mean, that's not to say it is a delay and much later than we would have hoped. There will be work being undertaken during that time. There will be a period of matters, issues and questions again, as there was with the Section 1 examination. So there would certainly be work. There'd be a good 6 weeks of public work in the lead up to those hearing sessions, and just for clarity, that they do have to give at least 6 weeks notice of hearing sessions, so that preparatory work can be undertaken, and that the sessions are available for people to get them in their diary. But yeah, it was simply a matter of programming and workloads from the inspectorate. As to why we've been given an early July provisional date.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's your answer, Councillor Bebb, for the moment, I think. I have Councillor Sandham next. Councillor Sandham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. What's the best way for us to protect ourselves from speculative unplanned greenfield developments like Kings Dean and Kelvedon while we're waiting for the protection to come from Section 2 of the local plan being adopted? Thank you.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Councillor Sandham. I will ask Emma for a comment, but in the meantime, yes, we realise we do get on the planning committee, we do have to deal with applications which are on unallocated sites. Although I have to say, there is nothing to stop any developer or landowner bringing forward applications, speculative applications, even once we've got our local plans fully adopted. I mean, that does give us additional protection if we refuse an application and go to appeal, but there is nothing to stop that, and the planning committee will always do their absolute best to refuse on solid planning grounds any application which they feel they have the grounds to do so. That's the best answer I can give at the moment. Emma, is there anything you can add?
So in terms of process, as you say, the council has to consider every application which comes before it and considers it on its merits based on the local and national policy position at the time. I think what I would say is that local residents, parish councils, if there are proposals within your area, to get involved in the process, so put forward your views within the consultation periods, so that planning officers have got a full view of the local position when they're coming to making those judgments, and planning committee the same. So yeah, I would certainly urge people to engage in the plan process. But we are in the situation where we may well continue to get some speculative planning applications, and we will have to deal with them and judge them on their merits with the position we have at the time.
Thank you, Emma. Right, Councillor Sandham, does that, well, I don't know whether it's a satisfactory answer. I think, we will do the best to fend off speculative applications over the next few months where we can.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Butland, I have you next, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, may I say how much I agree with your comments regarding the local plan and our view. I remain, like you, equally disappointed that we've missed what I think was a golden opportunity to fundamentally change the way in which we develop housing in the district, well-planned housing, sustainable housing, linked with infrastructure, and taking more account of the wishes of communities rather than the profit line of developers. However, having said that, that has gone. We are where we are. Councillor Abbott referred to the inspector. The inspector, I don't for one moment criticise his professional ability. I suspect the views on the abilities of the inspector are probably determined by your view of his outcome. And I think that's probably demonstrated by the fact that there are people in the east of Essex who were marching to the same tune as Councillor Abbott was marching, who actually think the inspector has done an appalling job by agreeing the garden community east of Colchester. But I think no one is actually casting aspersions on his professional ability. However, we all have to accept where we are. I want to pick up on the point that Councillor Bebb raised, and that is that what I think is the inordinate delay in being able to take forward our Section 2 inspection, particularly having had a letter from the Minister saying, come on, get on with it. I think to have to wait until July for that to take part, and I'm still not clear why the Planning Inspectorate are unable to field a single inspector to be able to start that now. I just find that totally incomprehensible. And if the inspector that they have lined up has other issues, obviously can't have other work because they wouldn't book inspector for 2 lots, but presumably has personal reasons, then surely there must be other inspectors who are available. And I know that it is causing concern not just with Councillor Bebbs, Parish Council in Hatfield Peveril, but I suspect all our parish councils and communities throughout the district. So I'm going to suggest, Madam Chairman, that we add an additional recommendation to that which is before us tonight. And with your permission, I'll read out what I would like to see added to that recommendation, which would be recommendation C before us tonight, and would read, it would have before the local plan committee, etc. C, recommends to full council that it expresses its huge disappointment that the examination of section 2 has been delayed by the planning inspectorate, and instructs the portfolio holder for planning to write to the inspectorate, urging it to see if there is any way in which the examination can be brought forward. I do appreciate that officers have made their representation. I do actually think that this needs some political clout. And I give notice, Madam Chairman, that should the council as a whole agree that approach, that I will also write to the Minister for Housing, Christopher Pincher, and say thank you very much for your letter about the need to get it done. Please, can you help us to achieve that by telling the planning inspectorate to organise its work in a way in which it can deal with the pressing matters? Because as Councillor Sandham raised, etc., the longer this goes on, the more uncertainty there is about potential speculative development, etc. So I would want to move that amendment, Madam Chairman. If it finds a seconder, that would be helpful, and add that to the recommendations before us this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm happy to second that, Madam Chairman.
Right, thank you, Councillor Abbott. I had Councillor Everard down to speak, but Councillor Abbott, did you want to, you've indicated to speak, did you want to speak on this particular point, in which case I'll let you go first?
Yes, I'll just very briefly, I think that's a very sensible position, and I, for one, will fully support it. I think, as has been said, we need to move forward as quickly as possible on section 2, and having more months of delay is not helpful. Although I would say it takes us closer to my prediction of having a local plan not in place till 2022. But as things stand, I don't actually want that to happen. I want to be proved wrong on that. Just very briefly, because I had indicated to come back as well. I'm not against garden communities in principle. I mean, we keep going back to this sort of basic default of our garden communities, good or bad. My issue throughout has been that the evidence wasn't there to support the particular model that was being proposed, and I think that's a clear distinction.
Okay, right. I take your point on that. I've heard what you said, and thank you for seconding. That's good. Can I just check with Emma Wisby? I think I can take that suggested additional recommendation as a vote at the end when we do all of them. Is that right?
You could, Chairman. Traditionally, we'd normally deal with the amendment whilst we are in part of the live debate, because if it fails for any reason, then you've still got those recommendations contained within the report. Chairman, it may be easier to deal with that amendment now, because you've had Councillor Butland and Councillor Abbott moved and seconded it, and it may influence the rest of the debate on this matter. All
right, that's fine. And shall I do that now before I ask Councillor Everard to speak? Or yes?
Please, okay, Chairman.
Fine. All right. Okay, members, we have had Councillor Butland has moved and Councillor Abbott has seconded an additional recommendation, which is I won't do it word for word, but which is that the chairman write to the planning inspectorate expressing our extreme disappointment at the delayed date for examination of section 2 of the plan and asking for it to be brought forward. So if I just call your names out, and if you could please say for, against or abstain, I would appreciate it. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Coleridge.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Everard.
For.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Mrs Sandham.
For.
Councillor Wrench.
For.
Good, thank you, members. That received unanimous approval. And I will make sure that, well, this obviously it has to go forward to full council on the 22nd, but if that meets full approval, then I will make sure that's acted upon. Right, Councillor Everard, you indicated to speak. Off you go.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I very strongly echo what Councillor Butland's said about the loss of the garden communities, or at least the section 1. Including the garden communities. We would have had control of the housing supplies and to our needs as well. And I really, really regret that that was lost. But my question really is, can we not gain control by adopting something like the NEGC system with ours, maybe with the other authorities as well, in order to give what we really want. I think that's. I had a lot of other things written down, but I'll leave those for the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Everard. That's an interesting point. Emma, can I look to you for a response, please? I mean,
Thank you.
all right. Let me. I was just say. I
think what.
I was just going to say. I think the adoption of section 2 of the plan will give us the.
Go on. Sorry, it's my connection.
That we need. No, it's all right. I think adoption of section 2 of the local plan, when we get there, will give us the sort of comfort that we need.
Thank you, but I think that's very, very important that we do have some sort of control against speculative development. Thanks.
Okay. Emma Goodings, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Sorry, suffering a few
Sorry, I didn't.
Problems.
I have given Councillor Everard a little bit of a reply, but I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to add.
I don't think so. I think that could be a matter for the next local plan, and when we're next considering, key strategic sites to take forward, that it may be that we want to consider the delivery method for how we do that going forward.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, I'll just check the chat function. I don't think I've got anybody else waiting to speak on this item at the moment. In which case, members, we have the recommendations set out on pages 5 and 6 of the report. I don't think I've had a mover and seconder yet, have I? Yes, Councillor Butland, you.
I'll move the recommendations in the report together with the amendment, which has just been unanimously supported.
Fine, thank you very much.
Need a second.
Right, I've got to say, I think Councillor Cunningham just got in ahead of 1 or 2 other people. Fine, thank you, members. So I'm now going to proceed to the vote, and I will do as I did before, which is to call out names, and if you could please say for, against or abstain. So the recommendations, together with the additional recommendation, have been moved by Councillor Butland and seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland,
4,
Councillor Coleridge,
4,
Councillor Cunningham,
4,
Councillor Everard,
4,
Councillor Horner,
4,
Councillor Hume,
4,
Councillor Mrs Sandham,
4,
Councillor Wrench.
4.
Excellent. Thank you very much, members. That's unanimous, and I think, well, we'd all be agreed. It'd be good to get this before full council on the 22nd of February, and it would be nice to get this part of our local plan at least agreed and in place. Right. Now, members, we can move on to item 6, which is Statement of Community Involvement, which is an update. And this is going to be presented by Alan Massau. It's on pages 227 to 274 of your agenda. Alan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spray. The Statement of Community Involvement sets out the consultation methods that the Council uses when we're consulting on documents and planning application, among other things. Members will recall that we did an SCI update last year, and in response to the pandemic. These updates were originally due to expire on the 31st of December 2020. However, due to the ongoing pandemic, the government's extended the provisions in the Coronavirus Amendment Regulations until the end of this year, 31st of December 2021. So this carries forward the relaxing of publicity requirements, such as the availability of documents and requirements for face-to-face consultation, things like that. In addition to these changes being extended, the SCI includes changes to tables 7.1 to 7.11. These are the tables that relate generally to DM consultation, development management consultations. This is in response to updated government legislation and guidance. We've also proposed that in future any further changes to these tables will be delegated to a director level as they're a result of legislative changes. Some of the examples of these changes are included in para 3.2 to 3.7 of this report, and things to do like prior notification, stuff like that. It should be noted that the text definition for major development in the glossary needs updating. So I will just pop this on the screen there, and if it works. It appears to work. Excellent. So the glossary definition for major development will be updated as set out on the screen. It's not currently updated in the glossary. There's a little bit of an oversight on our part. The SCI document itself sees from page 233, the changes to it have been set out in red, and any text temporarily struck out will be reinstated at the end of the year if the regulations aren't extended again. However, the tables at 7.1 to 7.11 will remain unless they need to be updated in future. Thank you. The recommendation is, I think, 232.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Alan. Right. I have nobody on the chat function indicating to speak at the moment. I'll just give you a few seconds in case anybody does want to. Can't see anybody wanting to speak. All right, we do have recommendations. Oh, sorry.
I'm happy to move it, Madam Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councillor Abbott. I've just seen Councillor Butland has indicated. You're muted.
Wouldn't want to be muted. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The one group that sticks out to me like a sore thumb as not being represented, and I'm particularly looking at pages 251, 252, is the homeless, and also the hidden homeless. Those young people who are currently either sofa surfing or living with parents, etc., and those that are homeless generally. We don't specifically mention them at all. And I just wonder whether it would not be that it would be appropriate to include that in that table on page 251, 252, that it is an area that we believe we need to give consideration to as to how best we can tackle that particular group of the population.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Alan, can I ask you just to come back on that? I think that's quite an important point, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable addition. Admittedly, the homeless and the hidden homeless are very hard to consult. We do things like the social media consultation, which is available to anyone with a social media account. Although I fully accept that there may be some people who would not have that if they were homeless or hidden homeless. That option is out there. It's a very difficult group to consult, but I would be quite happy to insert those into, I think it was the tables. Let me just check. Yes. Other bodies.
Pages 251, 252.
Yes, 251.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what these 251, 252? Yeah, these tables. So these generally refer to the statutory consultees. I think we would cover it a little bit under the general consultee bodies, because we do have charities on our consultation database, and I believe some of those charities do deal with issues of homelessness. They'll be quite happy to put a specific reference to that table.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Bowers has just indicated to speak. Councillor Bowers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just following on from that, I totally agree with the points that Councillor Butland's made, but I also totally agree with the points the officers made that it is very difficult to consult and get that information. So I just wanted to support both points, but I think we're all on the same page of whatever we can do is definitely worthwhile and inclusive for everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the difficulties, but I think it would be a good group of people to add. Councillor Abbott moved the recommendation for this. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. All right. Just check that nobody else wishes to speak. No. All right. Okay, members. We've got the recommendations set out on page, I think it's 228 of the report. I'm going to take a vote now, so that with those recommendations, with the just the addition of adding the homeless and hidden homeless to that list, and I will read out names, please, and if you could say for, against, or abstain. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Bebb.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Coleridge.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Everard.
For.
Councillor Horner.
For.
Councillor Hume.
For.
Councillor Mrs Sandham.
For.
Councillor Wrench.
For.
Excellent. Thank you, members. That again was unanimous. Right, good. So we now move on to item 7, which is neighbourhood plan update. And this is back to Alan again. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The following report outlines the current progress we've been making with neighbourhood plans in the district, as well as providing an explanation of the process which neighbourhood plans undergo and the basic conditions that they need to meet in order for a neighbourhood plan to be successfully adopted. The district has 11 designated neighbourhood areas, and of these areas, 3 have adopted neighbourhood plans to Cressing, Hatfield, Peveril and Bradwell. It's anticipated the next neighbourhood plans to come forward to referendum will be the Coggeshall neighbourhood plan, which has successfully completed its examination, and the Sailings neighbourhood plan, which is currently at examination. The report also includes the current progress on other neighbourhood plans, which is at paragraph 5.1. The local authority does have a duty to support parish councils and groups undertaking neighbourhood plan work, and primarily do this through the Rural Community Council of Essex. Other support we provide includes includes providing advice on draft policies and helping with mapping, things like that. Once a document is submitted to the council, it becomes the responsibility of the council to undertake consultation, as well as appointing an examiner in consultation with the parish council to examine that plan. Assuming a successful examination, the local authority then has to organise a referendum, and if approved at referendum, the council can then adopt the neighbourhood plan as part of the development plan for the district. What this means is once the neighbourhood plan is adopted, the policies contained within it should be taken into account when determining planning applications within that neighbourhood plan area. So that's a quick run through of where we are at the moment with neighbourhood planning. There is a table included in the report, which at 2.1, which shows the different stages that neighbourhood plans have to go through. I just want to point out that the period at the end, which refers to the months that have taken it, so this appears to be how long neighbourhood plans are taking at each different stage by the neighbourhood plan groups. It's not a sort of a deadline or anything like that. So I was just wondering whether there's any questions on neighbourhood planning.
Thank you very much, Helen. Councillor Bowers has indicated to speak.
I think that was from before, Madam Chairman.
Sorry?
I think that was from before, Madam
Oh,
Chairman.
sorry. Oh, right. Sorry, beg your pardon. Right, in that case, don't think I've got anybody else wishing to speak right now. I will just say, and I have said this before at meetings, that the neighbourhood plan process is not it's not a quick process. It does involve a lot of hard work. Generally, I have to say, undertaken by a fairly small group of very dedicated residents. And I think, you know, our thanks and appreciation always go to those people who offer to help out, whether that's with taking photographs, information gathering, getting questionnaires out and so on. And it is a very worthwhile thing to do, but it does involve quite a commitment, which is much much appreciated by us and by officers. Councillor Abbott, you've indicated to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I totally agree with that. A huge amount of work goes into neighbourhood plans. They can take years. The point I wanted to raise was it's therefore worrying that when we've come to planning committee or appeal decisions, you don't always feel that the neighbourhood plans have had much influence on the decision. And sometimes communities will say, well, why did we do all that given the result? Obviously, we are in a difficult position in not having a 5-year supply and not having an up-to-date local plan. But I would hope, given the government has put great store by neighbourhood plans, that when we are in a position of having adopted plan and a 5-year supply, they will carry significant weight, and that communities' views will therefore be represented fully in planning decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Well, I agree with that and the weight that should be given to them. I know that in the government's recent draft white paper on planning, we sent a very full response back to a lot of the points raised. One of them being that we sincerely hoped that their expressed intention of giving good weight to neighbourhood plans would stick. That we would like to see that their importance was recognised, and that there would be no watering down of that when and if the white paper does come forward. It is important, especially when people put a lot of work in, that that it is recognised. Alan, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with a number of neighbourhood plan groups over the years, and also with the RCCE. Yes, it's quite right. They do take quite a long time, but everyone has to sort of remember that neighbourhood plans are formulated by volunteers on the most part, and they can come up with some very good neighbourhood plans, even though they don't have a sort of a planning background. They do have some very interesting backgrounds, like we had like landscape architects who've been working on particular plans, accountants, all sorts of things. They've got their own sort of different skill sets, and they can bring that into producing a very good neighbourhood plan. And those neighbourhood plans are they are approved locally, so I think that's it's a very important thing to remember about these plans. So they have to pass a local referendum. So.
Yeah, Absolutely, I agree, and I appreciate it's been slightly frustrating over the last 12 months, really. You know, with the pandemic and so on, that it has slowed down some aspects of the process, and I'm sure we'll get there. Councillor Butland has indicated to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sure I should know this, but if I've been told it, I've forgotten. What's the lifespan of a neighbourhood plan?
All right, it depends. There's no obligation to update a neighbourhood plan. So once you produce your neighbourhood plan, you can leave it, although there will be some benefits if you do update a neighbourhood plan. In terms of lifespan, if a neighbourhood plan has allocated sites that meet its identified housing need, then it gets this special treatment in terms of 5-year supply. So for a period of 2 years from adoption, the 5-year supply actually goes down to a 3-year supply, or it should, in sort of planning appeals and decisions like that. So it can, if the purpose of the neighbourhood plan is to continue meeting your housing need, then you probably have to update it quite frequently if you want to continue getting that 3-year supply of benefits. But in generally speaking, there's no sort of expiry date for a neighbourhood plan, although we would recommend that they update them reasonably frequently, I think, if they want them to remain relevant in planning terms.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Councillor Butland. Not seeing that anybody else would like to speak on this item. So, members, this report is just for noting. We don't need to go to a vote. So I will take silence as assent that it has been noted that everybody is in agreement. Not seeing anything otherwise. So thank you, members. That item is done. We've no further business items on the agenda for this evening. So I think I can conclude business and conclude the agenda items at 18:55, I make it. So I will pass back to Emma Wisby. Just to thank you all for your attendance this evening, for some very good contributions, very good input. Thank you, members. Emma, back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, before I ask the webcasting officer to terminate the broadcast on the YouTube channel, please can I remind you that the Council will retain performance data regarding your link to this meeting this evening in the event that we have a legal challenge. Webcasting officer, please can you terminate broadcast?